Hello, Jason. It's Sunday, June 22nd, and we have another really late video. Somewhat in my defense, I have been working a lot lately. In fact, I looked at the numbers and I've only had 4 days off so far this month. So, I've been busy. And of course, along with working so much, I've just been really tired and haven't really wanted to sit down and make a video. Until now, that is. One of the unexpected perks of working so much is that I read during my lunch breaks, so when I'm working 6 days a week, that means that I'm getting at least 3 hours of reading done. Which is how I've managed to finish reading another book, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, which I don't think I told you I started reading after Under the Dome. However, I am 100% sure that you know about this book because I talked about its author, Ernest Cline, in a previous Badass Mother Friday video. He's the one who embedded a secret code in his book and waited for someone to solve it, and then gave the winner of his challenge a DeLorean. And that contest pretty much mirrors the plot of the book. The main character, Wade, has a character in this video game called the Oasis, which pretty much everyone plays to escape the horrible reality of our futuristic world. But 5 years previous to the beginning of the book, the creator of the video game The Oasis has died and left his entire fortune and controlling stake of the company which he helped to create to whoever can solve his riddles and find a hidden Easter egg first. The book itself is just bursting cover to cover with references to the early days of video games, particularly the late 1970s onward through the 1980s. And along with 1980s video games, it makes reference to movies, music, and novels that were all popular during the decade. And so, coming from the world that we now live in, this seems sort of like a love letter to a long-lost age. I personally found the book extremely entertaining. It didn't take me very long to read, and every time I would put it down, I would anticipate the next time that I would be able to pick it up. Which is always something that you want to look for in a book, one that draws you back in repeatedly so that you don't just put it down and forget about it for 3 or 4 days. And all of those references to things that I experienced while I was growing up, having parents who were teenagers in the 1980s, made this book feel like a sort of look back into my own upbringing, even though it takes place in the future, and that's something that I could relate to as well, because quite frankly, a lot of what he describes this futuristic video game as seems pretty damn cool. From an entertainment perspective, I'm going to say that this was probably one of my favorite books so far this year, so it won't be a surprise when I give it a 5 out of 5. And from a literary perspective, I should give this book about a 2, but considering the fact that Ernest Cline hid a code in his book and didn't tell anyone about it for over a year, means I'm going to give it a slight bump and give it a 3 out of 5. After finishing Ready Player One, I picked up Black Swan Green by David Mitchell, who you may remember is the author of Cloud Atlas, the book that I put on top of my top 10 list. And oh boy, I can already tell it's going to take me a long time to read. There's a lot of words per page compared to the previous few books I've read. And now, onto our Badass Mother Sunday? Which today is going to be a two-parter, because all weekend I've been juggling between 2 people, and when I finally decided on one, something happened that made me say, you know what, I've got to do the other one as well. And the reason that I was juggling between them is because they were badasses for pretty much the same reason. They're both stand-up comics who do something a little special with their act. The first one is quite frankly one of my absolute favorite stand-up comics of all time, Demetri Martin. And the reason that I chose him is because of his stand-up comedy special, If I, which, if I can find it, will be linked down below for you to watch at your viewing pleasure. If I is not only one of the most hilarious comedy specials I've ever seen, it's also one of the smartest and details the sort of neurosis that Demetri Martin feels. The particular section of his show that appealed to me most was the section where he talks about his point system which he created in order to help him become a better person. Something which, quite frankly, has impacted my life as I've created multiple point systems for myself and may have had something to do with the challenges in this project. So like I said, if I can find it, I'll link the comedy special down below, and I highly encourage you to watch this one, at least more so than the other one. Because the other badass today is a bit more controversial, a man named Russell Brand, and in particular his comedy special, Messiah Complex, which I will also link down below if I can find it. Originally, I had settled on only talking about Demetri Martin today because he's a bit less controversial, and quite frankly I think some of our more sensitive viewers could be highly offended by some of the stuff that's in Russell Brand's comedy special. But then I clicked open Facebook and saw on the side that there was a trending news story where Russell Brand is currently standing outside of British Parliament calling for a revolution. I'll just let that sink in for a minute. Yeah, Russell Brand, that Russell Brand, the one from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, is calling for a revolution in Britain. And quite frankly, for the most part, I agree with him, though I'm not necessarily as optimistic as he is that his methods are going to work in achieving a revolution. Now, in his comedy special, Messiah Complex, he talks about the ways that we sort of manufacture our heroes so that they fit into a pre-designed narrative. He talks about 4 figures throughout history who could be considered heroes but who have been rebranded by a grander narrative in order to make us follow things that those people didn't necessarily stand for anyway. But beyond that, Russell Brand is quite frankly one of the most unique, intelligent, and quick-thinking people I have ever seen. But I'll let his work speak for itself, so if you get a chance and you're not with company that's easily offended, check out his video if I'm able to find it and link it down below. And now on to Battleship. Your last shot was a miss, and I'm going to go ahead and attack I-10, starting my long process of trying to find your final ship.